60 years after the original Freedom Riders challenged segregation across the South, another group of Freedom Riders is hitting the road, this time fighting voter suppression legislation. It's all a part of a 10-city tour organized by Black Voters Matters. BNC's Jamise Price is live now in New Orleans for the tour's pre-launch. Jamise, good to see you.
Good evening, Kelly. The tour starts tomorrow on Juneteenth, and the goal is really to educate the community on their voting rights, but also to challenge legislation that suppresses the black vote. A freedom ride challenging voter legislation across the South starts in New Orleans.
Voting rights is not, in my opinion, just a civil right, it's a human right.
LaTosha Brown is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter, the organization behind the 10-city tour that will make stops in places like Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and West Virginia before ending in Washington, D.C. The goal is to increase access to the ballot.
We're seeing massive voter suppression in our communities, but we're not powerless. We can organize ourselves, we can make a showing, we can literally do something about it.
And they started that something today in the very place the original Freedom Rides planned to end, in New Orleans. There was a rally reminding people of the value of their voice. We even heard from original Freedom Riders.
Dr. King came and tapped me on the shoulder.
The history literally instructs us on what to do for the present, right, and for the future. And so we want to build on what those Freedom Riders 60 years ago did that literally led to the end of segregation, and build on that.
And like our history, they're also calling on federal legislation, pushing for the PEOPLE Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act.
That we've got the power to make it happen, because again, our history shows us that. Our history shows us that when we face this, when we come together, when we work together, we win. And so this is the moment for us to come together and make our demands. Power concedes nothing without a demand.
They say this tour is their way of making a demand. And this Freedom Ride got a send-off by original Freedom Rider Jerome Smith. The next stops are in Jackson, Mississippi and Birmingham, Alabama. In New Orleans, I'm Jamise Price for BNC.
Jamise, that is a remarkable story. It's good to see that this tour is making its way across the South, addressing voter suppression. What problems are these voters facing in those states?
There is some legislation that was really focusing on those strict voter ID laws. You also have some legislation that making it very difficult for people to request those mail-in ballots. So those are some of the things that will be addressed on this tour that's going across the South. Kelly?
I thank you so much for that report. And Jamise reporting from a rainy New Orleans, but the fight goes on. Thanks, Jamise.